Okay, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and get started and more people can catch up on it. Okay, so officially welcome everyone to our event of the year, as I like to call it, the Admitted Student Panel. Okay, so my name is Mew. I'm a strategic advisor at EduSmith, and today me and my co-host Pipap are very honored to be joined by three very talented students who will be talking to us about their own journey and exciting plans ahead of them in terms of university. But before we go on to the main event with our panelists, I would like to spend a few minutes just updating the application trends, going over the key components of the application for our rising high schoolers or rising seniors who are just getting started on this journey, so you all understand what to expect. Okay, first of all, just please join me in congratulating the class of 2022 on their fantastic results this year. So we've had good news across the board. On the US side, we've had students receiving offers to study computer science, engineering, economics, business, design, and art in the countries like top institutions, for example, the Ivy League groups, the top UCs, Northwesterns, NYU, Caltech, Carnegie Mellon, Duke, Georgia Tech, just to name a few. And on the UK side, our students also secured offers from top universities like Oxford, Imperial, LSE, UCL, along with multiple notable art and music schools. So really well done, the class of 2022. So let's take a look at some of the stats for this year. Okay, so looking back at the journey, the admission chances for the previous year has been equally challenging, if not more, compared to the year before. So we continue to see record high number of applicants following the continuation of the SAT optional policy. So students still don't have to submit in their SAT. And so we've seen a lot of people sending in applications. Interestingly, several big names have decided not to enclose their admission stats anymore. Like for example, you can see we are missing the bars for Stanford, Penn, Cornell. And I think this is that intention to not deter like any interested candidates. Okay, moving on to the prep. So if you are just a rising high schooler, how should you best approach this process? Okay, focus specifically on the US admission trends. We always say is that the process is more like a marathon, not a sprint. So prep can start as early as grade 9 or grade 10. So in grade 10, I think this is the time to start prepping for standardized exams. The SAT, the language tests like TOEFL or IELTS, this is the time to get yourself familiarized with the test format. Keep up with your schoolwork because at this period, your school grades start to matter now. This is what is going to be sent to universities. Also, this is a great time to start exploring your interest. So whether it be what you want to study further in university or just something that you simply enjoy, I think this is the time to start really building on that. So join clubs, do new sports, volunteer, do outside activities, compete in competitions, explore courses, or just pick up a new hobby. Then when you rise up to grade 11, things get a little bit more serious. So some of the curriculum, for example, IB's A-level AP has officially started. So it's very important to keep on top of this. You should also aim to start taking the SAT and language tests during this year. And during the summer, I like to say this is going to be the busiest summer of your life. So please make the most out of it. You'll have time to further develop the activities that you have explored since grade 9 and grade 10. Perhaps you can complete an internship or a research stint to further strengthen your themes. And also, this is the summer where you'll be starting to work on your college application. So you have to really plan your time well and use the summer to the most of your benefit. And then in the last year, grade 12, you'll actually be submitting your application during your first term or perhaps the end of your first term. Okay, so just as the first term goes, try to maintain your grades, your activities, and just keep up with everything to be able to submit the application on time. Looking more closely into the application, you can see that there are so many components that you can utilize to really show the universities who you are. This can be done through the academic stuff, so the GPA, the courses that you take, your test scores, but also on the activities and like your personality side. So this come through from the activity list, the additional information section. Perhaps some universities will allow you to attach a resume or also film a video introducing yourself as well. Some universities have the option to do an interview. So this is where you can tell them more about yourself. And also the big chunk in this diagram here, your essays. And you can show yourself through the personal statement and also through the supplement essays, which are like specific questions that universities have for that incoming students. So make use of all these components to really bring everything together to show them like a piece of who you are. Everything might seem a little bit overwhelming, but in a sense, everything in the application can be boiled down to these 4 key factors. So your academic, your activities, your essays, and your teacher's recommendations. It might be a little bit difficult to imagine what everything will look like in real life. So I think without further ado, let me pass the mic to Pipap and our panelists who will be sharing their first-hand experience with the application process.
All right, thank you, Pimu. So my name is Pipap or Maria, just kind of depending on whatever you want to call me. I am a counselor here at EduSmith, and I will be helping our amazing panelists facilitate the conversation today. So I know some of you might have some questions already, but the panelists might be able to answer them through their presentations today. So yeah, let's meet our panelists. So our first one's Candy.
Hi, I'm Candy, and I attended Bangkok Prattana School, and I was studying the IB diploma, and I got into Cornell University ED, and I'm going to be majoring in communications, but I also applied for business for the other schools.
Awesome, thank you, Candy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nano. I'm from Ekamai International School, which is the school with the AP system. I got into Georgia Tech and a bunch of other engineering schools. I'll be studying perhaps industrial engineering or mechanical engineering this fall.
สวัสดีค่ะ everyone. My name is Kim, and I attend Shrewsbury International School, and I studied the A-level curriculum. I got into both non-art universities and art universities, such as UAL, Chelsea College of Art, and UIUC. And I plan to attend a major in graphic design communication.
Awesome, right. Thank you so much, everyone. And just a big congratulations for you guys. You guys are done now, and you guys now have all of that wise knowledge we can give to all of our younger students. So our first question for today is, what inspired you to apply to universities abroad? And we can start with Candy.
So personally, I was always really interested in the US university system, as I thought it was really flexible in terms of allowing you to explore different areas of learning. And there were lots of different opportunities to broaden your whole learning experience, for example, through taking on different research projects with professors. And I also thought that it really allowed you to explore your interests through the multitude of extracurricular activities offered within different US universities. And a really important aspect to me was also cultural diversity. So being able to learn from people from different cultures and different backgrounds coming together to one institution. And I feel like this gave your university experience more enriched overall. So.
Awesome, thank you. We can go to Nano next.
All right, so I believe that like a combination of inspirations and circumstances pushed me to apply to the abroad universities for my US. I've always wanted to pursue my education to its fullest extent. And at first I thought that was at Chulalongkorn ISE. However, when the pandemic came, all of my plans and personal goals shifted. And then I realized that, I should start to look for an alternative to where I'm going right now. So then I started researching more into US university. And then I found that myself, my personality, my drive, and my accomplishments, they kind of vibe more, fit well more with the US university, whether that be the admission system or the university itself, which examines a person holistically instead of looking at them as just a combination of their scores. I also like how US universities, you are able to switch your majors easily. And so like at first I did not know which major I wanted to go into exactly. I had this general idea of going into engineering. So yeah, I can still take my time to explore in the US.
Awesome. Okay. And our other student here actually applied to both UK and US. So Kim, can you tell us a little bit more about like the differences that you found from your research of UK and US learning systems and why you applied to both of them?
Definitely. So both the US and UK, they are both abroad, obviously, but then the difference between both countries is that for the US, like Nano said, it's more holistic and also it's also diverse as well, like the UK, but then with the US, it's more holistic. So you just study your major, but you also study different aspects in learning, for instance, liberal arts or maths. But with the UK, it's more specific to your major. So like I'm studying graphic design communication, so I just solely focus on that. And the reason I applied to both the US and UK is because I want to gather the best experiences and opportunities that I know that I can get. For example, because I'm an art student, I want to gather lots of inspirations from different cultures that are different from Thailand. And with the US, with the US and UK, they have more of that to offer with its diverse programs. So I kind of want to go into that opportunity and encounter it as much as I can, and also bring it back to Thailand where I can further explore it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all of you guys. Let's move on to the next one. So you guys are COVID high schoolers, right? Like you guys kind of started your journey right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So can you maybe tell us a little bit more about how that affected you while working on your applications or school? Let's go to Nano first this time.
All right, thank you. So COVID affected me in a variety of ways. Like, first of all of my extracurriculars, like all the events, the tournaments, and my academic pursuits were generally canceled. And then like, all of the APs, like AP exams went online. So before we were studying for like the on-site exam, and then it went online, and it was at such an unfortunate time at like 2 a.m. in the morning, which like I had to adjust myself to. And then I also see like a silver lining in COVID that I could use more time to craft like and give the love and care that needed to create a brilliant application. So that was one good thing about COVID for me.
All right. And any negatives that you kind of other negatives that you had to work your way through, or was it mainly testing?
It definitely like it's also like financial situation with my family, and as well as like all of like my extracurriculars being like going online or not being able to do it to like its fullest extent.
Yeah, I believe Candy can also say a little bit more about, what about you, Candy?
So firstly, I think it was really hard for me to connect with my school counselor, my teachers and friends, and this affected both my application process and the IB curriculum. So I found it a lot harder to find advice and guidance through my friends, teachers, and the whole school environment in general, which I would usually have a lot of access to. But at the same time, it also gave me a lot more time to be able to focus on my application, and like Nano said, to be able to sculpt it to be the best piece of work possible. So I couldn't have done it without the COVID time as well. But also, as Nano said, there was like a big obstacle in terms of extracurriculars. So I had to move a lot of my ECs online, which made it really hard for me to like manage different groups as well, because people kind of lost interest, or it was harder for people to be more committed to the clubs. But at the same time, this gave me like an opportunity to move everything online. So even though I had to learn to adapt and become more creative in that aspect, I was able to create like TH Feminist with my friends, an online platform supporting feminism. And I was able to attract like people from different schools as well, which I probably could not have done without the COVID times.
All right. And Kim, for you, you also are an art student. So maybe can you tell us a bit more?
Definitely. So COVID did affected me a lot in terms of my application process to art schools because I had to send my portfolio, and a majority of my time I had to do it at home a lot, which I had to try to find alternative ways to be more creative in my way. So I had to do more of digital work, which was pretty hard because most work I wanted to do was physical as well. But then I also had the ability to kind of manage my time more effectively during this process because I got to organize my time more effectively in terms of when I can work on my portfolio work and when I can work on my other supplemental essays and those kind of aspects. And also with extracurriculars, it was definitely hard for me because I was in this organization called Shrewsbury International School Mangrove Teens, and we had to go plant mangroves, but because of COVID, we couldn't. So we had to try to find ways to do an activity that is interactive as well.
Right. And, universities also recognize that you guys were doing your applications during the time of COVID. So there was like a COVID, how are you affected by a COVID area in the Common App? So did you guys use it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right. So yeah, I basically explained what I just did. And I also added like how my tests were canceled, like SAT subjects tests were canceled, and like some were like postponed or moved. So that was an additional difficulty on my part. And more importantly, I think I've used the COVID section to frame how I was the one trying to connect the community together through these tough times, and like try to, instead of like just not doing anything, try to host online events or trying to host like semi-online events to still try to keep everyone connected through this time.
Got it. Yeah, and anyone else?
I did it as well. For me, I just explained what I explained previously. So I talked about how it was difficult for me to work on my art portfolio. And also for me, it's difficult with extracurriculars. And I just talked about as a whole, but also talked about in the positive aspect on how that actually helped me kind of work through this process through the pandemic as well.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, you guys. Let's go on to the next question. So yeah, you guys kind of been through it all now. So what was your strategy regarding, test scores and other required documents that your universities might have asked for? Candy?
As a person who really struggled with standardized testing, I would definitely recommend for you to start as early as possible. So the pathway I think that you should take is to start with like a beginner's SAT course to get more familiar with like the style of the test and just become more familiarized with the test in general and its format. And then after that, I would recommend starting to delve deeper into the strategies and the different tactics to approach different styles of questions. So with that, you can use different SAT prep books like College Panda, or like search for some YouTube videos or Khan Academy. There are lots of resources out there. You just have to kind of look for them. But then after that, I think the main thing is to practice. Practice is what really like kind of finishes everything together. So having understood these different tactics and strategies, you want to practice them on real past papers and just keep practicing until you become more familiar with everything, and eventually it'll all work out.
Very encouraging. Nano, I know you also had to do a bit of standardized testing. Tell us more about that.
Yes, definitely a lot of standardized testing. So I applied to engineering schools, which is notorious for requiring and like many standardized tests. I did the SATs, the ACTs, the APs, the IELTS. So yeah, I've done so many standardized tests. And like advice that I would give for this is that like when you try to learn the material, learn it in a way that you do not only memorize it, but to do more so to understand it. And then once you have that understanding inside of you, and then you can start like doing more practice tests and like working all the strategies that you learn, or like the strategies that you maybe uncovered on your own into the into the practice test. And when you practice, and then only like the practices would only make you better, like Candy has said. And so yeah, and for engineering, I think for me, I added like a bit in my additional information session where I described like some of my engineering projects. So that I think that is also very, very useful.
Right. You said like SAT and ACT. Can you maybe take us through like the differences of them, and why did you end up choosing the SATs at the end?
Right, so I took both the SATs and the ACTs. I decided not to send in the ACT scores, but instead send in the SAT scores. Because first off, I think I have to preface with like how my school is. My international school is like built for more SAT based. We have the PSAT, like which is like made for us already. And then we've been studying SAT vocabularies since like 5th grade. So yeah, they've been like a continuous process of preparing us for the tests. And the differences between the ACT and the SAT is like mainly how it's SAT is more, it gives you more time to pace yourself. And it also is on paper, which I was more used to when the ACT was like on computer, and then it was much different. And then, but then the ACTs has some advantage in which it has like the science section, whether if you be good at the science section, or and then other sections which is different from the SATs.
Got it.
Okay, so I think a great strategy that we can all learn from Nano here is try your hands at both of the exams if you have the opportunity to, and maybe pick one that you feel you have a slight advantage on, and just go with it.
Exactly. All right. And Kim, you've thrown the word portfolio around quite a bit. So so that was like your other required document for art school. Can you maybe start with like what is a portfolio, and then tell us like how did you navigate creating that?
Definitely. So a portfolio is another required document required for art schools. So it's a project sketchbook, I'll say, that you give to universities to show what kind of art you like, and also your style of art you want to pursue, and also showing your different skills, for example, drawing, painting, poster making, sculptures, etc. And that is a big factor for art schools, because with test scores, they don't really matter as much as the portfolio, but it still matters as a whole. So I would say maybe around 80% is what the universities look for in art schools is portfolio, and 20% is the test scores. In regards to doing the portfolio, the best strategy I would say that I used, which benefited me, and I think will benefit all the younger students, is that look into the requirement of the university of like how many works they want from you, and also like what kind of style they're looking for, which I think benefited me because I kind of worked through that with the UAL portfolio process on what kind of style they want to go for, and then I worked from that, and then I send it off to them. And with the test scores, I only did the IELTS, so no SATs or ACTs because it was optional for me. But with the IELTS, I first practiced with the harder sections that I struggled with in the beginning, which personally for me was reading and writing. And then like what Kanye said is to practice over and over again until you feel confident and comfortable in it. So that's what I did. And then when you finish doing the hard sections, you can then move on to doing kind of the more comfortable sections, and then you'll get better at it. So it's just kind of a motive of practicing.
Right.
Thanks, Kim.
Yeah.
And really good advice on getting inside the heads of the university, seeing what kind of things they're looking for. Awesome. Candy, just wanted to touch on something you talked about in the previous question. You said you mentioned staying connected to your teachers and counselors. So I was just wondering if you have any advice regarding like teachers' recommendation.
So I think the recommendation letter is also a really important aspect. And for me, I saw that Cornell really valued it in particular. So I think that you should really make an effort to get to know your teachers and to reach out to them whenever you need help and really show them that you're proactive in your own learning. So the more you reach out to your teachers and school counselor, and the more you form like closer relationships with them, the more in depth they can write about you as a person. And I think that the recommendation really kind of puts the cherry on top of your whole application, as it helps the college and the admissions officer really see who you are as a person through another person's perspective. So having that can really bump up your application as well.
Right. So as we like as Pimu kind of mentioned in the beginning in her summary, like one of the important aspects is a letter of recommendation. So I'm sure all teachers and all counselors really appreciate when students reach out to them and like really make the time to talk to them, because they also have to make the time to write your letters of recommendation for you as well. So yeah, it's perfect. All right. So you guys are now seniors, graduating seniors. You guys are done with school. Any like general tips for rising seniors, people who are starting high school, who, on like, how did you stay on top of both school and your application? Kim, I'll let you start first.
Definitely. So I think on staying both on top of school and application is obviously important, but I think one factor that is really important to go through with that is time and flexibility. For time, I would say it's kind of like you break up your chunks of time that you have throughout your application process to the due date. So what I kind of did was that I find a date that I want to just solely focus on my application, and I just do that. So that was like every Wednesday. And then with school, use your study periods effectively, because that's the time that you can actually do your schoolwork. And then after school, you can then work on other things like I did with my portfolio and college applications. So I think staying both on school and application is just managing the time. But also flexibility is important. So doing things that you love outside of your field major is important to make you stay healthy mentally and also make yourself feel more happy. So for me, it would be just watching Netflix or on social media, which kind of just made me kind of stay out of both school and applications. But then I just kind of had to like break up the time effectively, because that can take a distraction for me. But then I did that.
All right. And Candy.
I think time management and prioritization is definitely key. So kind of listing down and knowing exactly what tasks you want to finish each week can really help with your own like personal planning process. And once you have that down, I would say for each day, set specific timestamps for what you want to do and how long you want to spend on each task. And I feel like that really helps lessen like procrastination times and really help you stay on top of all your work, both in school and your application. I had to kind of juggle the IB, my writing essays for the application, and also SATs. So I think prioritization is really key. But then I also have two interesting strategies, which might not work for everyone, but you can try it out. So firstly is kind of having a study buddy. So what I like to do was to call my friends, one or two friends, and kind of like just mute and work at the same time. And I felt like this really motivated me to work harder, and it kind of like increased my motivation, because you realize that a lot of people are also working through the same thing as you. So having a friend can really help boost your mental health in studying.
Perfect. So we're going on like also the theme of like taking care of yourself mentally is super important during these times. Nana, what about you?
Oh yeah, it's definitely difficult to stay on top of both school and the application, which when we have like so many things to do. So yeah, I agree with both Candy and Kim on how time management and prioritization is like very, very important. I have an alternative method to Kim though, like I cannot study if I had my friends near me. So yeah, I would be the one studying alone mostly. But if I were to give advice, to how to stay on top of both school and the application, I would say that you should make it fun and make it enjoyable and make sure that you are happy doing it. So don't view it like a chore, because it is not a chore. It is something that is actively like developing your skills. So all these application schoolworks is developing your skills, whether it be in creative writing, teamwork, public speaking, and even your thinking and problem solving itself. And I myself, I would like gamify my own experience. So I would try to give myself rewards at the end of each task or at the end of each goal, and try to set myself like milestones which I can complete, and then like really indulge in them. So another advice I'd give to everyone is that everyone should start early in like the application process and both school, because like you don't know how much time you have. Maybe things can go wrong, and starting early definitely gives you advantages in all of the fields.
All right. You guys talked a lot about like starting early and like maybe like having those time. Any advice for this upcoming summer for our rising seniors?
I think you should definitely start writing your essays. Like if you've already gotten your SATs out of the way, or if you want to prep for your SATs, then do that as well. But what I did was I worked on my SATs and I tried to write like my UC application essays and my Common App. Try to write as many essays as possible, because you're definitely going to have to redraft and keep writing and keep perfecting. So if you have like a base really early on, then you can really work with that in building your different essays. And I would also recommend like doing an internship if you can, or like maybe starting a course on edX. I think like it's a website where you can kind of learn something new, or like master an area of learning that you enjoy. And I think this can help you stand out from the other applicants as well.
All right. Any other summer advice?
Yes, like definitely look into like going into internships, and also there are like a lot of research programs available where you can go into and like maybe even help like some university professors with their research. There are also a lot of competitions open during the summer, whether that be like hackathon, debate competitions, MUN, so many opportunities that you can dive yourself into.
All right.
Yeah, and also for art universities, like I said, you can look into the school that you want to go into and then read their requirements. And also it's best to actually start your art portfolio. I would say now would be great, and then moving onwards, because you can collect more of your art and then you don't have to struggle at the end when you're kind of compositing your layout. That's what they say. So it's kind of like your presentation, and then you just send it out to universities. So I think it's best to kind of like the earlier the better, and then you don't have to stress out at the end.
All right, thank you. So now I'm gonna have you guys, I'm gonna let you guys talk a little bit more now. So everyone did their applications, everybody kind of wrote their essays, you guys did all your activities. So now I want to know, what did you think make you stand out? These could be many things, these could be one thing. So yeah, just take over, you guys. So we'll start with Kim.
There were many things that I felt that made me stand out in my application. So firstly, I would say would be my portfolio. My work kind of had a combination of diverse projects, I'll say. So I also showed the examiners for both the US and UK admissions team on what I have outside of my field majors. So I kind of did a lot of the fine arts to show that I'm capable of the basics of drawing and painting. But I also kind of added on to my related majors, so graphic design, and I emphasized that more onto my application. So I put in lots of poster designs, infographic designs, as you can see, and also card game designs. So I tied that all kind of in together and then made it into my portfolio. And I also don't only focus on what I'm interested in, but also my other interests as well. And besides the portfolio, it was also the extracurriculars that I encounter. So I was the head of graphic design for this organization called Choose Change, which promotes social change on different aspects around the world. So this could be about the current events or even social media or entertainment on racism and those kind of aspects. And I manage in terms of looking into the graphic design themes of the account and also the color schemes and the text to make sure that everything is coordinated so that it's engaging to the audience. And outside of art, it's important to note that I felt both band and sports were two aspects that made me stood out, which for sports, I did competitive swimming and track and field. And with band, I was a drummer in a rock band for 7 years. And I didn't add this picture in, but I felt that the other thing that made me stood out was about my personal essay, which I talked about my limitations on reading comprehension and analytical skills. And I talked about how visual learning kind of helped me, I would say it helped me improve my skills in terms of academically overall, which was very important and also showcased that I was able to pursue what I want to do.
Awesome, thank you. So why don't we go to our next student? Yeah, Nano.
Hello, everyone. I think what made me stood out in my like extracurricular activities was like how I did unconventional activities for a STEM major. I did student councils for 3 years, Model United Nations for 4 years. I was on the school debate team for 3 years. I was an intern for Parliament, and I did piano for like 10 years. So all of these like makes me look like a liberal art major, but then I actually applied to STEM. So how did I do it? I tried to like all these interests. I did not do it for like myself, but more so do it for because I was interested in them and I was passionate in them. And then so I try to tie these interests like maybe organically and sometimes synthetically into like engineering projects. So if you were to go to the next slide. Okay, so yeah, like for me, I did debating, a lot of debating, and then so I decided to create an online debating platform when COVID came, and then like my team and I, we wanted to debate with each other, but we could not find like a platform to adequately debate on, so we decided to create like an online debating platform website that you can debate on, and this we submitted it to a hackathon, and then we won an award as well. And then so I was also like, working in MUN for like 4 years. I was also interested in like SDGs, like the UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And so I incorporated many of those into my various other engineering projects. And I have a lot of like self-initiated robotics project that like tries to deal with the environment and like COVID-19 situation as well. And for me, I think that I definitely try to go into like whenever I go into these interests, I try to push it to the fullest. So I try to like go into leadership positions in all of them, like how I was the vice president of my Model United Nations Club for like 2-3 years, and then vice president of the debate team for 2 years as well. So yeah, I try my best to push myself to the fullest. And yet in my like essay, I still try to convey the sense that I am vulnerable. So in my essay, I talked about how I had like a broken arm, yet I played table tennis, and how like I was bullied in middle school, yet like in high school, I grew and developed like a self-esteem and try to push myself to its very best.
Awesome, thank you. And Candy.
I think what made me stand out was my Common App essay. So like Nano said, I was also very true to myself and very honest and genuine in who I was. And I think that this was portrayed both through the content of my Common App essay and also the stylistic elements. So I'm a pretty creative writer and I enjoy writing. So I try to exemplify this aspect of myself through writing this essay. So I feel like that really ticked the box of me being a good writer, and especially applying into the field of communication. This is a pretty important aspect. but also I think I was able to portray my personality and kind of my journey of self-discovery through a unique approach through writing this essay. So I used an analogy of like dreaming, and I incorporated music into it, which is one of my hobbies. So I feel like that allowed me to showcase a side of myself that you wouldn't see anywhere else within my application. And another thing is also having a common theme. So I tried my best to brand myself in the best way possible, and I focused on showcasing like a plethora of different factors that made up who I was. And I made sure that this also linked well with Cornell's mission statement. As I applied ED, I was able to kind of focus on this through my Why Cornell essay. And my extracurriculars revolved around using like communication, business, and marketing for social change. So that kind of tied it all together into this common theme. So for example, I started Teach Feminist with my friend, like an online platform for to support feminism. And I was marketing director of Can Cure a Breast Cancer Club. I was also really interested in the SDGs. So I was a youth leader for Youth for SDGs. And I participated in a stock exchange internship to do with corporate social responsibility and many more. So yeah, I was able to combine like a lot of my interests through the various essays, and this was also backed up by my counselor recommendations. So another thing I forgot to mention is that you should remember to also inform your counselor or your teachers about the different activities and extracurriculars you participated in, so they can include that within your recommendation. So it can kind of like serve as a backup or a piece of evidence that you kind of participated in these activities.
All right, so these are all really great stuff that you guys obviously did. So yeah,
I think like the key message that I got from all of you guys is first, participate in activities that are somehow related to what you want to study further in university, but also don't be afraid to do something you really enjoy. Just go with it, and somehow if it can be related back to what you want to study, great. If not, still include it as part of your application. And also just don't be afraid to be vulnerable, don't be afraid to be yourself in your essay, and that would really shine through.
exactly. All right. So I know we kind of asked this before, but let's kind of have you choose one and make it difficult for you guys, which is if you guys can just have one advice to the younger students, what would it be? Let's start with Kim.
I would say flexibility is the big key message and advice that we give to younger students, because being flexible means that you can have a balanced time and healthy, like be mentally healthy. So like what I said previously, so being flexible doesn't mean that you focus on what you want to pursue only in the future, but also have other times to be happy for yourself. For instance, hanging out with your family or friends, which I felt that was really beneficial to me. And I think that would be something that to consider.
Awesome. Right. Don't forget your friends and family, even though we're applying to college. All right, Nano.
Right. So the one advice, if I had to choose, would be to, enjoy the journey, and just that would make the destination much more meaningful. So like enjoying the process of like doing it, whether that be like going into extracurriculars just to improve yourself, and doing all these activities, making sure that you enjoy them, and making sure that these are where your passions lies, and you are not just doing this to impress someone, but doing this for yourself, and doing this to make sure that you are happy and make sure that you are fulfilled in life.
All right, Candy.
I would say you should always try to work strategically. So find your best characteristics and try to paint this picture of yourself, which shows all the different sides of who you are, and really utilize your different essays to portray the different aspects of yourself. Sit down and do like your own evaluation of yourself and see what you're really passionate about, and kind of pick out the best parts of yourself to be able to craft your own story, because universities want to see like how you're unique in comparison to other students. So you should really trust yourself and try to display who you are through your writing, through your grades, and just the entire application in general.
Perfect. So really can sum it up as like, just enjoy the journey. The destination is important, but right, enjoying the journey more, being yourself, enjoying the process. Yeah. I know it's hard to the rising seniors because you guys are feeling the stress, but take it from these guys, right? Okay. So we are now opening up to the Q&A part. So any parents, any students who are in this chat right now or on our Facebook Live, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to hand it over to our experts.
So I have a question first. Candy, you mentioned earlier that you applied ED to Cornell. Can you tell us a little bit more about your strategy there? What was your thought process?
So I kind of tried to go strategically with this. Like Cornell was always going to be one of my top choices. I really liked the school and I really liked its values, and also the communication course was to do with like social sciences. So it really aligned with me and my goals. So I felt like I would be able to use my Common App and use my different extracurriculars to be able to present who I am in the best way possible, in which it aligned with what Cornell wanted. So I feel like this would up my chances. But when I was deciding, I was also comparing it between Cornell and Stanford, because Stanford was also one of my top schools. But I felt like, to me, Cornell had a lot more, like a much higher acceptance rate in terms of the early decision round as well. So I think you should also take that into consideration. So kind of, and in general, it also fit in more with me, and I felt like I would be able to manage the education there better. So when you're choosing your ED school, you should aim high, but also try to like see if it aligns with you and if you'll be able to manage it.
Okay, thank you. Kim and Nanoy, I know both of you also used the early decision round. Can you share some stories, some experiences with your ED?
Yeah, so I applied ED to a US school. I'll just say it. I applied to Rhode Island School of Design. I was unsuccessful. I applied there because I felt like I had the time and I was pretty early in doing my portfolio. So I felt that taking the early decision opportunity was going to be beneficial to me, and that I can try and see like, oh, like this school is interesting and I want to apply here. Yeah, but then I kind of used the same strategy as what Candy did. And for mine, I kind of just prepared everything I had on hand before November 1st, which is the early decision round. And I just go for it. So I just kind of put all my hard work and effort into that round. And then the result is what it is.
Got it. Nano?
Well, I also was unsuccessful with my ED. I applied to Brown University as I thought the school and the university itself kind of vibe with me, because I wasn't really sure what major I was going to, and Brown has this open curriculum where you can explore a variety of interests. Yet I was not successful. So, but still, like, try to not, be discouraged by one rejection. Like, one rejection does not define you. And so, like, definitely still try to give your best to the school, but also like have room, like have that expectation that this is a tough school, and you're not going to always get in, and there's a lot of competition. So yeah, expect that maybe there is a fair chance of failure, but still try your best.
All right.
Yeah, definitely aim high for your early decision school, but don't be deterred if you don't get in, because as you put it, the competition is high and it will all work out eventually, like it did for you guys. Like, even though you did not get your ED school, you got into a very good school that matched you academically and your passion wise as well.
Yeah. I know someone once said to me when I was applying to college eons ago, aim for the sun, you're bound to land on some stars. Just very poetic. So yeah. Okay, I have a question from someone submitted a question. They asked, will we be able to look at our counselor's recommendation letter before we share it to the college? Also, can we request to edit the letter if the counselor misunderstood something and wrote something completely wrong in the recommendation letter? There's two. Let me answer the first one. You cannot read the letters of recommendation. So your counselor doesn't like write it and send it to you and then you send it to the colleges. What will happen is that your counselor will directly send their letter of recommendation to that college and or to the Common App portal. So you cannot edit or, you can't really see what they write. And that goes for all letters of recommendation. The second one is maybe our panelists can help us answer. How to begin a conversation with our school counselors so they can get to know most of us in a good way. Go ahead, anyone.
Do you want? For me, I thought that this would be a bit of a struggle because obviously you've only known your school counselor for like the 2 years that you've started like applying for your application. So I thought it would be like a bit of a struggle. But I think right from the get-go, you should start talking to your counselor right away. Start telling them your goals and like where you are aiming to apply or what you're currently doing within school, how you're doing. Just make an effort to be proactive and to reach out to them and to try to like show that you really care about the applications and you care about the whole process, because they're looking over so many different students. So if you're not the one to reach out to them, they're not going to like kind of differentiate you from the other students. But if you reach out a lot, keep emailing them, updating them, and making an effort to set up meetings and stuff, then you'll be able to get to know your counselor better, and your counselor will also be able to get to know you as a person, which will really help them write your recommendation to the best that they can. So yeah.
Yeah. Any other suggestions?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Candy, like whole attitude of like reaching out and connecting with your counselor. For me personally, my school, I think I've built like a relationship with my counselor since I think grade 9. So 9, 10, 11, 12. And actually, I think she's in here today in one of the audience. So yeah, we kind of like talk and like about like my plans, and I try to like schedule out meetings so that I can explain to her my situation more carefully, and she has been the most helpful in those areas.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Go on.
And yeah, and also for me, it's kind of the same with Nano and Candy, but for my school at Shrewsbury, we had this thing called a Jumpstart program. So this is where like students would get to kind of meet with their counselor and then talk with their counselor, and they call it a counselor interview thing, but I wouldn't say it's an interview it's kind of more like a fun conversation. You talk with your counselor, it's kind of like an icebreaker day, and you just get to know them and then talk about your goals, your passions, and then they're there to help you. So it's not something that's kind of like, oh, they're going to force you to do this or that. It's just talking through what you want to do in life in general. And yeah, so it's just kind of building a good connection with them. And yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Just wanted to add on, in that part of the question, the audience also asked, can you correct something if the counselor has put like a wrong fact in the letter? So as you can't read the letter, you can't do that. But to prevent that from happening in the first place, sometimes I would recommend students to provide like a summary sheet, like a written sheet of all the things that you've done. Maybe some things are in school, some things are outside of school as well. Just put everything in and give it as a written evidence to your counselor, so they have that to fall back on when they, because they have so many students. So they have that sheet as like a guideline of what things you've done.
All right. We have another question, which is, how did you guys research to see which college best fit you guys?
Yeah. So for me, I looked at both art schools and normal universities. So for art schools, I kind of looked just the environment overall, how like students kind of were at the school. And I would say that it would be pretty similar for all art schools. So everyone would have the same interest because it's just an art school. And I kind of also look at the location as well on like where it's surrounded. So like for me, I'm attending the University of the Arts London, and I like the location of where the university is at because of the city itself, and London has so much to offer. So that's kind of what I looked for. But then for normal universities, it was mainly on like the school spirit, I would say, because like with the US universities, I looked at game days at sports and those kind of aspects, and I kind of saw like seems fun, so like why not apply there to see like how it is, and also to see if they have a decent art program, which most of the places that I applied to for normal universities did. So I kind of looked at both aspects. So it's like how is the college spirit at that school, and do they have a decent art program?
I looked at the program, so I knew that I wanted to do something to do with communication, marketing, or business. So I kind of looked at some of the schools there with like really good, strong programs, and then I kind of started from there, and I looked into each school, and then I started looking at traditions, like Kim said. I think that's a really important aspect as well. And I looked at the different opportunities offered in terms of like research projects, facilities, and like kind of just the whole vibe of the area as well, and whether I thought that I would fit in with their culture. And I think at the beginning, like EduSmith also gave me like this research university sheet, which kind of helped. So it was like broken down into different areas, and I just researched and kind of copy pasted what I really liked about each school. And since I was only allowed to apply to 10 schools with my school, it took a lot of like selecting. So having that sheet and kind of like researching really well allowed me to really pick my top 10 schools.
Right. Okay, so for me, for picking my school, I definitely research a lot into more so the academic programs and sort of like the school culture, like Candy and Kim said. So I made sure that, the school culture and how their philosophy and mission is actually what I believe in, so that I make sure that I fit into their school, and all of like the academic programs present, whether that be internships, co-op programs, or like other opportunities available. I try to make sure that, these are interesting opportunities which I would want to take part in, and all of the facilities and organizations presented in the school.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers. I have a question here. What would you have done differently in terms of preparation, testing scores, aiming higher, etc., if you could turn back time? I can see everyone actively thinking.
It's turning.
I think I would have done more in the summer. I think I already did a lot, but I felt like I could do more because like the first term like of senior year was so hectic. It's like crazy. So I felt like if I could turn back time, I would try to write more essays during the summer, or at least like research universities more in depth, because with the research, it just makes it a lot easier to start writing the essays and stuff. So I feel like kind of also make a to-do list of what you need to do like in each time period to be able to prioritize your tasks better, and just basically do as much as you can in the summer. It will really benefit your life.
I think for me, I would say for my art portfolio, I had a lot of work, which was a positive thing, and I loved all of it. But I would say I would like to do more of the art stuff because I think we have so much more to offer. And with also the essays, I felt like I could write a little bit more and put more detail into my writing to make me stand out a bit more and kind of put more emphasis onto why I want to go into that college more. So I felt like it was that kind of like putting a little bit more to that effort.
For me, it was definitely like exploring more. So even though I have a lot of activities, I still haven't explored a lot more. And I feel like I've wasted some time in like grade 9 or like in some summers where I could have definitely been like going in deeper into my interests and writing essays and thinking of like what to do in more areas and definitely like expanding my width of activities.
Thank you. A lot of mentions on essay writing. Do you have any tips, game plan on how to manage all of the essays that you have to do?
So in particular, I think the why essays are quite repetitive. Like you'll start finding that every university pretty much asks you to write like why them. So for me, at first, this may seem really like daunting because you have like 20 different essays to write for all your schools, but you can always use the essays you've already written and build up upon what you've already written. So as the why essays are usually repetitive, you can use the content that you've written for like some essays and then include it in others as well. So basically the main part that you have to change is researching for the specific classes and courses of that university. But what I would do is I'd usually spend like half an hour of that like allocated college writing time to like research the courses. And then I put it all in like this bullet point list. And then I just write one draft of that particular Y essay, and having written that one draft, I could use it for the next Y essay and just kind of switch out the courses, but still keep the same like reasoning for why I wanted to do like this particular area or this particular major. And I also feel like you should start with something unique that shows your way of thinking. You don't have to do this because usually that's already like presented in your Common App essay. But like as a creative writer, I kind of started with something that I think would be more unique and would stand out to them more. So for example, I compared like communication to architecture and how it's like a form of design. So I kind of opened with that, and then I went into like why, but you don't have to do that.
For me, it was definitely like with EduSmith, they helped group the essays into categories like community essay, diversity essay, why us, why this major. And then I think starting with like the biggest essay is what you should do like for each categories, like biggest essay for diversity, biggest essay for why us, because like cutting is definitely easier than adding. And then so you can try to like write the big essays, and then these essay fits into other essay and you just cut, and it will make your work much easier. I applied to like 21 schools. So yeah, that definitely made my work much more bearable.
Yeah, and also for me, I kind of did the same with Nano. So like EduSmith like splits up your essays into different categories and different kind of limits. Because for example, with one university, they might ask for like 5 different essays. So I just focus on the one that has a lot of the essays, and then I work through that. And then I progressively go to the slower ones. And also because with specifically the US essays, there's 3 rounds. So the ED round, the early action round, and the regular round. So I think it's best to start with, for example, the early action round first, because that's going to be your first submission. So do any essay that's in that round first, and then with the regular rounds, you can do that later, maybe during your Christmas holiday or in the beginning of January, because that's when the due date is.
Okay, thank you guys.
Candy, you were about to say something?
I was just gonna say you should also remember that it's not gonna be like perfect the first time round. Like I wrote my Common App like 5 times, like 5 drafts, and it was really hectic, but you'll eventually get there. Like there's no way that your first draft is going to be completely perfect for every single essay. But I feel like the more you write, the more you kind of get to know the format of writing uni essays, and it'll start to become a lot easier, and you'll find that it's a lot faster for you to be able to finish different essays. So just keep going at it and you'll get there eventually.
I think a lot of the rising seniors will be really glad to hear that. Okay, just a little bit conscious of time. I think we have time for one more question, and I have one here right now for Kim. Can you tell us a little bit more on how you prepared for interviews?
So for the interviews, I kind of just had a lot of ideas on how I wanted to approach talking to the examiner because there's so many ways you can talk to the examiner. But then I kind of just wrote down every single question that I think could be possibly like asked. So the main question that most the UK universities for art, for UAL, they would ask is, why do you want to study this course at this college? And then I kind of just had to remember what I was going to say and then just kind of be free in the interview because the interview, like I said, it's going to be something, it's just a normal conversation between one person and another. It's not something serious. So just go with the flow and you'll just be fine with that. And with EduSmith, they also are really keen to prepare you in the interview. So they will ask questions that you might have already like knew that they're going to ask. So just answer that according to what you plan to ask. And also just don't be nervous and then go with the flow. That's what I just did.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. So key takeaways. Just first wanted to say thank you everyone for coming today. Let's summarize because this was a long presentation. So the key takeaways, a lot of our kids talked about, right, like planning your numbers. Not only are your SATs and TOEFLs important, but also your transcript, right? They start looking since grade 9. So really like make sure that your grades are up to date. Right? Don't focus on just like what colleges need for SATs and stuff, but also focus on what you're learning in the classroom. And those things will also help you do better on the SATs as well. Finding your X factor, or as we have seen, there are many things that can make your application look right. So maybe like finding like the perfect ingredients for you and your application, whether it be your activities, the projects that you've done, the stories you have to share to the admissions officer, find them and then like really capitalize on them, really make them better. And then of course, just as Nano said, right, the destination is so much more sweeter once you've enjoyed the journey. So really enjoy the journey and enjoy applying to college, have fun with it. So yeah, thank you. Before everyone leaves, we are asking for you guys to maybe help us fill out the form that we've just sent out in the chat. We'd be very, very grateful to do that. If you have any other questions, please feel free to connect with us through these channels, and we will be able to help you discuss further on just your journey. Anything to add, Pinu?
Oh, I think you summed it up perfectly, Kipap.
All right.
Just thank you to the panelists again. I think your advice, your stories are very valuable for the students who are going through this process right now. And to all of you who are just beginning on this journey, just have fun with it, work hard and plan smart. And I think you'll get there.
Yeah, thank you. And congratulations again. You're off to your destination now.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone.
Thank you.